Francois Delsarte made his discoveries about human expression and gesture in the 1800s, and though science has come a long way since his death, scientists have yet to match his knowledge of the human body in action. Delsarte's story is long, and you could spend a lifetime exploring its many alleyways. But today, I'm going to discuss just one interesting and profound discovery that he made. Delsarte was a singer, actor, and orator, and what made him so skilled in these fields and as a teacher was his insatiable appetite for observing his fellow man. His system was built from knowledge he gained through long hours of observing others, as well as observing himself in the mirror. As a young man, he had the opportunity to visit a morgue because his cousin was a medical student. In this time before regulations and restrictions, he was allowed to spend time in the morgue with his cousin and examine the corpses there. His interest lied in seeing those corpses that had been, if not dissected, at least flayed. But while at the morgue, it was something in the recently deceased corpses which were still intact that caught his attention. He was looking for something common to every corpse, something that signified death. And he noticed that in all the corpses, the thumb exhibited a singular attitude, that of adduction or attraction inward. He had never seen such extreme adduction in persons waking or sleeping. Now curious to verify this connection between death and adduction of the thumb, he wanted to observe a person who was in the process of dying. His wish was granted, and he was taken from the School of Anatomy to that of Clinical Medicine. There, a friend of his cousin placed him beside a dying patient. Delsarte watched with the utmost attention the hands of the unhappy man struggling against the clutches of inevitable death. He found that the thumbs of the dying man contracted at first in only a small degree, but as the last struggle grew near, he saw the man's fingers become directed toward the palm, hiding the thumb. When death came, the fingers were soon restored to a more normal position, but the contraction of the thumb persisted. This seemed to confirm his discovery. Later, Delsarte was suddenly struck by a dazzling ray of unexpected light. He asked himself, if the adduction of the thumb was a sign of death, might the opposite be a sign of life? Delsarte needed a new vantage point from which to observe the human form. At first, he went out on the promenade of the Tuileries, thronged by the aristocratic class, but he found the people there false from head to foot, living an artificial and unnatural life. But the happy idea came to him to mingle with mothers, children, and nurses. So he went out to observe mothers and nannies tending to children in a park. There he saw laughing, crying, singing, shouting, gesticulating, jumping, and dancing. Here is life, he thought. If the contemplation of this turbulent and affectionate little world did not instruct him, he would not find the knowledge he sought anywhere. He didn't have to wait long, for he quickly noticed that those nurses who were distracted and indifferent to the children under their charge would display a thumb that was invariably drawn in towards the fingers, bearing some resemblance to the adduction which manifests in death. With other nurses who were more affectionate, their fingers would be visibly parted, and their thumb would be bent outward. I will quote Delsarte directly for his last observation. This accentration rose to still more startling proportion in those mothers whom I saw each carrying her own child. There, the thumb was bent violently outward, as if to embrace and clasp a beloved being. Delsarte called the thumb the thermometer of life, its adduction indicating death, and its abduction indicating life. He also clearly saw that the curling and narrowing of the fingers, as opposed to spreading of the fingers, indicated the same. But what does this mean for us who want to improve our posture and our ability to gesture? I'll note here that it's been remarked that F.M. Alexander kept his hands quite expanded, with his thumbs strongly abducted. From Jean de Masoero's perspective, the condition and position of the thumb and of the fingers are an indication of one's general coordination. If we look at a couple pictures of me, we can see that as I've made progress in unbending my torso and improving my general coordination, that my hand has gone from curled to widened, and there is certainly more progress to be gained there. This is not unique to me, we can observe in many pictures of what is wrongly considered good posture that the hands are narrowed and curled, and when the fingers are curled, you can be assured that the thumb will be curled in as well, and not forcefully abducted. Many people would say that they curl their hands because that's what happens when they let their hand rest. But is this a restful position? Or is this just what people are used to? This bending is really a flexing of the fingers. There's nothing efficient about this bending, it's not beneficial in any way, and you certainly can't say that it looks organized. But if we think it over for a moment, why would you want the bones of your fingers to come together? Why would you want to close the distance between the thumb and the fingers to rest? These movements of your fingers are not restful. They are habitual shortening and narrowing movements. This problem is really much broader than the fingers or hands. People habitually flex and shorten various parts of their body because they feel that it's restful. But our feeling sense gets used to whatever we habitually do. If you habitually bend your back, you will find it relaxing to bend your back, even if you also suffer from back pain. It will feel like a lot of work to extend your back into its full length if you're used to bending it all the time. It's the same with the hands. If you are constantly narrowing your hands, you get used to that, and it will feel like a lot of work to expand your hands. But if you instead were a person who consistently kept your hand expanded, you would think it's strange to curl up and narrow your fingers. It would seem like a hindrance, not rest. But it's important to understand that you can't correct your hands and fingers alone. The condition of your hand is dependent on the condition of your arm and your torso and your entire body. If your arms are habitually flexed, and for most people they are, as you can see, you will have perpetually bent arms. The extensors of your arms will not be functioning properly, and in nearly every case, the extensors of the hands and fingers will also be functioning poorly. That's the key to understand here. While we do want to extend our thumb away from our fingers, and we do want to separate our fingers rather than hold them together in a curled mass, adjusting the hand alone is not the way to get there. The problem in the hand is an indication of problems in the wrist, forearm, upper arm, torso, and legs. You will not solve the problem in your hand by focusing on the hand alone. You must address the entire body. That said, we don't want to leave our hands out either. So let's consider how we can extend our hands properly. There are a few things to make note of when attempting to widen your hand. You don't want to overextend the thumb itself. The tip of the thumb should not be pulled back beyond the knuckle. This is absolutely crucial to remember. You also don't want the tips of the fingers to be overextended, or for the fingers to be pulled back beyond the knuckles. The bones of the fingers go all the way to the wrist. We are really trying to expand the palm and the hand as a whole, which will naturally lead to expansion between the fingers and of the thumb away from the fingers. Let's name a few points on the hand itself. We will call this the base of the thumb, and this the base of the index finger. Can you move these points away from each other without overextending your thumb? We will also call this the base of the pinky. Try moving the base of the thumb away from the base of the pinky. Again, be sure not to overextend your thumb. Now, move all 3 points as much as you can away from each other, remembering that you don't want to overextend your fingers or thumb. This will be tricky to do at first, and it will be more difficult with your dominant hand. You may find that when you try to move your thumb away from your fingers, that your intention is translated into an overextension of the thumb, even though you know you don't want to do that. This is because we are much more familiar with moving the extreme end of the fingers and thumb, as opposed to moving the base of the fingers and thumb. This is an exercise in learning to control the fingers and thumb accurately, which in this case means moving the bases and not the extremities. You may also notice that as soon as you stop thinking about it, your hand goes back to a narrowed, curled clump. That's worth considering. What does your thermometer of life read? Are you closer to death or life? Do you have the thumb of a mother who loves their child or a careless nurse? Try to observe yourself in different situations, standing in line, talking with a friend, sitting in front of the computer or television. And if you'd like to change yourself, if you'd like to uncurl your hands and your body, I invite you to return to this channel where we will explore these ideas. And if you desire some direct assistance, I offer lessons in the Delsarte system. The lessons are done one-on-one over Zoom in the style of Jando Masoero's work, which is really the cutting-edge version of the Delsarte system. In lessons, you will learn to understand your body and take rational control over it. And in time, you will display the hands of a loving mother clasping her child. For more information about getting lessons, please visit my website, mechanicsofpoise.com.